Sir, we have a new fleet coming.
Oh, good. I requisitioned that nearly 4 years ago now. How many hunters on board?
Over 160,000.
Excuse me?
They seem to think that the way to the new continent is through here.
And they're
going to bulldoze their way into the wilds. Yes, sir.
Oh, God, no. Somebody, quickly, warn the Aptonoth!
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, this returning rush of players to Monster Hunter World is pretty unprecedented, not just within the Monster Hunter series itself, but in gaming in general. It is extremely rare that a game will see this much of a surge in player base this many years after release without even having any new content dropped for it. This wasn't spurred by a surprise DLC or something like that. This is just people playing the game again after the announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds, and Capcom capitalizing on it by saying, hey, more people should play this game as well. And then, well, we did. The current surging player base is silly, but that means it also gives me a good reason to talk about some of my favorite activities in the game, as well as just some things that you should probably do if you are either new to the game or just are someone who quit before finishing the game properly the first time. So let's go over 20 things everyone should do in Monster Hunter World, with the first half of them or so being base game specific, and the others also including some Iceborne for those of you whose fresh playthroughs have already breached into expansion territory, and some of you who are even already in the proper endgame. That said, let's break it off with number 1, the meaningful Arch-Tempered quests. All of them are worth doing at least a bit, but there are 2 that are exceptional and definitely worth checking out no matter what, the first of which being Zora Magdaros. And before I hear those groans out in the audience, hear me out on this one. The couple of story versions of Zora Magdaros that we get are sort of inconsequential. They are cool spectacles for sure, but the actual input required from your hunter is non-existent, and so it takes away a lot of the potential drama from the hunt and makes it feel like just an automatic on-rails experience through a cool-looking Elder Dragon. But Arch-Tempered Zora Magdaros has an actual tight timer. The magma core damage actually matters, the way that you treat the siege section actually matters, and when you are trying to beat the timer on the quest on something that is actually scaled to be a challenge, it just makes it feel like much more of an engaging and actual proper encounter, the way that I think they wanted you to feel during the original encounter. And the other main one of these then is Arch-Tempered Xeno'jiiva. This is just a much tighter, more enjoyable, and more challenging version of the Xeno'jiiva hunt. The base monster is of course basically just a spectacle creature with a big health bar to make sure that you get to see all the cool visuals and animations that it has. But Arch-Tempered Xeno is an actual challenge of a fight that expects you to bring in a proper build and really go to town with it. And while base Xeno is nowhere close to as much of a pushover as base Zora Magdaros is, I do think the Arch-Tempered version increased my enjoyment of Xeno'jiiva a similar amount. Second up then, a much earlier suggestion that you can sort of do along your journey through the quest is the Cosmetic Rewarding event quests. There are a ton of these, even in the base game, ones that can give you a very big floppy Wiggler helmet being my personal favorite, of the base world ones at least, but it gives you a bunch of different options to actually customize and personalize your hunter with either silly or cool bits of equipment that you can wear as a visual without making your skills less effective, so it's definitely worth engaging with. Then third today, we have something more obvious to proper veterans, but set up the Botanical Research Center properly, the big tree in the middle of Astera. There are a number of side quests that you get along your journey to boost the effectiveness of this thing in various ways, letting you farm more items at a time, larger quantities of the same items, and of course more effective fertilizer to the point where a fully upgraded farm is insanely more rewarding and profitable than the base farm. And if you haven't upgraded this and feel like you're constantly running out of different items, you have to go farm stuff on maps manually, this should become your number 1 priority. Fourth up then is more of a personal love of mine, which is Big Rock Kuliaku. There is a Final Fantasy XIV crossover with Monster Hunter World where we got a couple of quests, and while one of them is repeatable as many times as you want, there is a special assignment that you can only do 1 time per character aside from joining other players doing it, and that is the Final Fantasy Kuliaku, where he gets a big glowing crystal, and as you fight him, he gets bigger and bigger and stronger as a result of the crystal. It's just such a silly and enjoyably unique experience within the game, and as someone who loves Kuliaku in general as a creature, I just think this is an unmissable quest. On a similar note though, number 5 is Behemoth, just base Behemoth. This one I think is relatively completable in the endgame of the base game these days, and I think especially with the surge in players actually doing fresh playthroughs, you could probably get a full group of 4 people in appropriate gear to fight this before you move on to Iceborne, and that is quite a fun and unique experience to have, given that the fight doesn't return for Master Rank, so experiencing this in a decent high rank endgame set in a group is definitely worth it on the Monster Hunter World bucket list. For a similar reason, actually I have on here Call of Darath. Sure, yeah, anyone who actively farmed the hell out of base Monster Hunter World has probably completed this quest dozens if not hundreds of times, but for any new players, or just people who did the base story and didn't really go much further than that, if you have never done the proper Kulve-Taroth high rank siege, now is the perfect time. As again, like Behemoth, there are a lot of people doing fresh playthroughs of the game right now, which means it's a lot easier than it has been for literally over 3 years to find actual lobbies of appropriately geared high rank set people doing good old high rank Kulve-Taroth, as her master rank version was no longer a siege, it was a very different quest. And I think the 16-player siege nature of Kulve is unique enough that it's their first attempt at it that should definitely be experienced at least one time. After that, we actually have a fun one in my opinion, which is simply Kieran. Kieran is not part of the story of the base game of Monster Hunter World, nor does he even really become part of it in Iceborne. He is more of a bonus Elder Dragon that you either have to find on your own by doing certain event quests if you look for them, or getting to HR 49 and having the Tempered Kieran quest pop up. But because of that, a lot of people can wind up missing him, especially if you're playing Monster Hunter World as a base game, only with the intention of reaching Iceborne as quickly as you can. It can just be really easy to miss Kieran in the first place, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone gets to experience the Laser Unicorn at least once before moving on to the expansion. Aside from that, another big thing you can do in the base game is simply befriend the different Linean tribes around the world. These are the neutral NPC cat people that live in various tribes, and there's sort of a camp for each of these groups on each map that you can track by finding doodles around the map and then talking to Linean researchers as well. Once you have found one of the camps, you will either have to do a bit of a minigame following them around, or they will give you a side quest to go pick up and complete, and when you do so, you will gain their favor, which makes them able to join your party if you find some in the wild. It incentivizes them to launch off traps against monsters in certain areas of different quests too, and this is also how you unlock the various secondary Palico equipment options as well, the actual proper Palico gadgets, other than the Vigor Wasp itself, which includes the Flashfly Cage, the Protection Shield Spire gadget, the Coral Orchestra, which is essentially a little cat hunting horn that gives you buffs while you hunt, the Rotten Veil Tribe also gives you the Plunger Blade, and once you've done all of the other ones, you can befriend the ones in the Eldest Recess for the Mielotov Cocktail, which is just pure damage as a Palico gadget. All these have upgrades that you can get for them in Iceborne too, but having these is important for full personalization of your experience and easily something that can be skipped by new players rushing through to Iceborne. After that, we have unlocking your specialized tools, with the biggest, most important ones being Rocksteady Mantle and Temporal Mantle. These are simply incredibly powerful tools. Rocksteady making you immune to flinches while active, which yes, can get you killed if you aren't careful, but can also enable you to just pump out crazy damage if you're confident enough about your positioning. And Temporal Mantle, which similarly lets you play much more aggressively by auto-dodging anything that would hit you while it's active. Yes, these are very strong, they could even feel overpowered in the beginning, but the game, especially as you progress through Iceborne, starts to become balanced around the strength of these tools and expecting you to have them, and it becomes balanced around how well you can actually use them. So it's better to get these before you hit that wall where the balancing does include them. And then just a couple more for base world then, but one that you can easily complete in Iceborne 2 is Rainbow Pigment. Quite simply, this is a dye option for your equipment that changes through the various colors of the rainbow slowly, dramatically, and absolutely glamorously. Though as you may expect for something this special and unique and cool, it does take quite a lot of doing to actually unlock. Specifically, you need to complete every low and high rank optional quest, capture all low and high rank monsters at least once, reach research level 6 for 15 separate lower high rank monsters, and also reach HR 49 in the game. This is something that takes so much effort, even a lot of people with hundreds or even thousands of hours don't have this, but for those who are into it, that's how you get it, and the reward is pretty solid for sure. Then the final thing before Iceborne specifically is another crossover event, which are the Witcher quests. These are an extremely cool single-player experience to start off with, where you literally play as Geralt the Witcher from the Witcher series, hunting in the Monster Hunter universe, and this eventually leads to a unique crossover monster, the Leshen, which you have to fight solo. And after you complete that, you unlock Ancient Leshen, which is a multiplayer 4-player scaled quest that you can engage in with other hunters. But the main reason that I recommend doing this is honestly the single-player portion. The way they integrated Witcher mechanics and actually used Geralt as a character, and the concept of the Witcher style of RPG over Monster Hunter, the way there are side quests with fun solutions worked into the quests that you can find naturally just by walking into them, all of that is just really incredible. It's clear a lot of passion went into this crossover, and everyone should get to experience it before moving past it. Speaking of moving past then, we're on to Iceborne now, the expansion with those things included, so these will be mostly either more general things about the game as a whole, or full proper endgame specifically. And the first one that I want to mention is collecting Endemic Life, or at least looking into what it takes to get the rarest of the Endemic Life, because it's quite interesting. It's like a full-on mini-game within Monster Hunter World, honestly. It's really cool the amount of effort and detail they put into the system, where at a base level, even on its own, it just makes the world feel a little bit more alive because of all the tiny critters running around everywhere, all the different species of them you can see around the place. But even past that, for the people who love collecting things, it adds a whole extra layer of intrigue to the game. On a similar note, one of the things that you can do with captured Endemic Life is release them into your bedroom within the game as well, well. You can choose which ones to have where and essentially just keep them as pets. And this is only one small aspect of actually decorating your room. There are tons of little tiny microtransaction decorations if you really want to spend money for that type of thing, but there are also a number of free ones for you to interact with as well, with a number of them coming from our next entry here, which is the Steamworks. This new activity unlocks in Iceborne within Celiana itself, and it's essentially just a little fun mini game that you get to play, controlling the steam levels and watching fun animations happen, and you can even make it happen automatically if you want to eventually, but essentially this just gives you tons of free stuff in exchange for some materials. It's good fun to interact with on a base level, but the rewards that it gives you can be actually genuinely incredible on occasion if you get a little bit of luck. Then after that, we have something that you can do even while progressing through Master Rank itself before reaching the end game, which is to fight the Master Rank versions of all the base game monsters. There are tons of monsters that are technically a part of Iceborne, but don't get story quests to hunt them within it, and a lot of these are ones that were story monsters in the base game. Every single monster that has a Master Rank version also has a Master Rank adjusted moveset, which means every one of those monsters without a story quest is now a new thing that you can go experience and see how the monsters have changed since high rank, and for a lot of them, the changes or additions are pretty cool too. One more thing you can do along your journey once you reach Iceborne is survey the various Linean tribes across the maps. An earlier entry we had for Base World had you befriend these tribes, and if you do that before Iceborne, you can get a sort of side activity unlocking in Celiana to then survey them in Iceborne, which is essentially just using clues about what some tribe members might be up to, and using that to find the specific locations they refer to on the maps, and take a picture of these Lineans in action with the surveyor set, which is essentially just a camera. We've got a full video covering this entire activity if you just want to be guided through it completely, but if you choose to go into it yourself, it's just a nice relaxing couple of hours walking around and enjoying the beautiful maps in the game while finding some cool Linean interactions in the wild and taking pictures of them. And the rewards end up being a bunch of melding materials, trade-in materials for loads of Zenny, and some larger armor spheres as well as some other stuff too. For the rest of these then, they are pretty much all post-story of Iceborne itself, but things that I think every player should endeavor to experience at least once. And first on that list, we have engaging with the actual endgame, which is the Guiding Lands. Anyone who stopped playing Iceborne even within a few months of finishing the story will not quite recognize how the Guiding Lands is today. The area and its systems were updated just constantly and consistently until the end of the update cycle for Iceborne itself, and the way that it works now is extremely enjoyable. There isn't as much grinding required by any means, there's a lot less RNG to it, so you actually have more control, and it is essentially just a veritable hunter's playground, which is exactly what it always was intended to be. So check it out now, whether you've experienced its early versions before or not. Past that, once you're in a proper Master Rank endgame build, give a try at soloing the Extreme Behemoth event quest. With Master Rank weapons, it becomes doable within the timer for one person, and even with the Master Rank armor, while a lot of the damage is reduced significantly, you will still fail the quest if you don't know how to do the mechanics properly. So doing this solo in Master Rank, because it's originally balanced around 4 players, makes it far more approachable to most people than the originally intended time to engage with the quest, and it's a lot less frustrating than having to do it with 4 people, especially if you're having to do it with 3 people that you don't even know. And it still keeps some challenge and makes you learn the fight anyways within the hunt too. Past that, we have something that will happen passively if you play the game enough, but it is reaching Master Rank 100, which gets you the proper kill quest for Ruiner Nergigante, so you can actually get his gear and everything like that. And it's just a nice milestone to be able to actually reach, though definitely a longer term goal for sure. Then finally, I've decided to put these 3 in a sort of combo, which are the DLC monsters for Iceborne, but within that there are 3 specifically that I really want to highlight. The main one, who is what I believe to be the best quest in the entire 5th generation, is Raging Bracados. For anyone who dropped Iceborne before March of 2020, that means you have never gotten to experience Raging Bracados for yourself. Do yourself a favor and do that quest, as in my personal opinion, it is the best quest in the entire 5th generation from start to finish. The fight is super enjoyable, the reimagining of the monster is done excellently, and it is somehow both a spectacle fight of extreme magnitude and also a very enjoyable monster fight that feels in line with normal hunting. It is a scripted fight that doesn't feel scripted the way that a lot of scripted fights do, and that makes it really special, and I feel like it genuinely needs to be done at least once by every hunter who is able to participate. The other 2 then are Elatrion and Fatalis. These 2 black dragons were the final major title updates for Iceborne, and so many people missed out on them as a result of how long they were after the release of the expansion. But those who didn't miss out on it got quite a unique experience on both fronts. Elatrion did annoy a lot of people because he forces players to use element or die, essentially, but once you get past that hurdle, his actual moveset is actually extremely enjoyable. One of the better rounded ones of any modern monster for sure. And then we have Fatalis, which is just the pinnacle of challenge in Monster Hunter in general, giving you a piddly little 30-minute timer, a monster who actively punishes you for attacking the head, then also actively punishes you if you don't break the head, mind before pushing past certain health thresholds, and then the heart-wrenching panic of every single fire breath. It's just an absolute spectacle and one of those milestones where you can't really complete Fatalis without being a genuinely good hunter, unless of course you like sit in the camp for 30 minutes and get carried by other people. But generally speaking, if you beat Fatalis, you have to at least be good as a hunter, and so it's just something that feels incredible once you actually take it down yourself, and eventually once you get used to the fight, it can start to feel just doable on a regular basis too. And outside of things like Monster Hunter Frontier, I would say it's about the hardest that Monster Hunter gets. And that just about does it then, everyone. 20 things I think everyone should do in Monster Hunter World, both the base game specifically and some more catered toward Iceborne as well. Some of these are just things that I think newer players should definitely be aware of in case they aren't, but most of them are activities I know not everyone has done in the past or might not think to engage with now on fresh playthroughs because of how things are laid out or old outdated information that I think everyone should just definitely get to try at least one time. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and hopefully this reminds you of some of the stuff that you maybe weren't planning to do beforehand. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.